The morning air was crisp, but for Maria, it didn't feel refreshing. It felt heavy. Another day, another struggle. She looked down at her worn-out shoes and sighed. Her son Daniel was still asleep at home. She had to find a job today, no matter what. Maria had once lived a normal life, a stable home, a loving husband, and a secure future. But things changed when her husband passed away suddenly. His death left her drowning in debt. She tried everything, small jobs, long hours, but nothing was enough. She had skills. She knew how to manage finances and understood business. But without experience and connections, no one would give her a chance. Today was different. She had an interview at a major company, a position in administration. It wasn't her dream job, but it was a job. It would pay the rent and feed her son. That was all that mattered. She adjusted her blouse, making sure she looked as professional as possible. Her clothes weren't new, but they were clean. She had borrowed a pair of decent shoes from a neighbor. First impressions mattered. As she reached the tall glass building, she took a deep breath. She was ready. She walked inside, approached the receptionist, and introduced herself. The woman at the desk gave her a quick glance and asked her to wait. Maria sat down, holding her bag tightly. This was her chance. She couldn't fail. In a spacious office on the top floor, Leonard Hayes leaned back in his leather chair. He was the owner of Hayes Enterprises, a company he had built from the ground up. Or at least, that's what he liked to tell people. The truth was, he had inherited his father's business, but he never admitted that. He preferred the image of a self-made billionaire. Leonard didn't believe in helping people. In his mind, those who were poor simply didn't work hard enough. He often said, "If I can do it, anyone can." He ignored the fact that he had started life with wealth, power, and connections. His assistant, Mark, entered the office with a folder. "Sir, we have another applicant for the administration job." Leonard barely glanced at it. "Another one?" "Probably another desperate case." Mark hesitated. "She has experience in finance. She seems determined." Leonard scoffed. "Determined? That's what they all say. Let me guess, low-income background? Probably looking for charity." Mark nodded. "She's a single mother, sir." Leonard smirked. "Even worse, she'll be taking days off for her kid. She'll be a liability. Toss her file in the reject pile." Mark hesitated but obeyed. Downstairs, Maria was still waiting, her hands gripping her bag. She had no idea that her fate had already been decided. She wouldn't even get an interview. Maria sat in the waiting area for what felt like hours. The lobby was sleek and cold, filled with expensive furniture and bright lights. But the more she waited, the more her hope began to fade. She couldn't afford to lose this opportunity. Finally, the receptionist called her name. "Maria Gonzalez?" She stood up quickly, trying to calm her nerves. This was her moment. She walked into the large office where Leonard Hayes sat behind a massive desk. His expression was distant, as though he were already thinking of something more important. He didn't even stand up to greet her. "Sit down," he said, motioning to the chair across from him. Maria took a deep breath and sat. She tried to focus, to remember why she was here. "I saw your resume. It's fine," Leonard began. His tone was dismissive. "But frankly, we're looking for someone with more experience." Maria's heart sank, but she didn't give up. She had to try. "Mr. Hayes," she said softly but firmly, "I may not have a lot of formal experience, but I know business. I know how to work hard. I'm a single mother, and I've learned to manage everything on my own. I just need a chance." Leonard didn't look at her. He was flipping through some papers on his desk. "I'm sorry, but we don't have time for people like you. I suggest you keep looking elsewhere," he said without looking up. His words felt like a slap. Maria's hands trembled, but she stayed calm. She wasn't giving up. Not yet. Maria left the building, her heart heavy, but her mind sharper than ever. She had been rejected, humiliated even, but she wasn't going to let it stop her. As she walked down the street, the sounds of the busy city echoed around her. It felt like the world was moving forward, while she was stuck. But she refused to stay stuck. She thought about her son, Daniel. He was still too young to understand the struggle, but one day she would tell him that she did everything to build a better life for him. She would start over. The first thing Maria did was find a part-time job, anything that would bring in some income. She worked at a small cafe, doing everything from waiting tables to cleaning. The hours were long and tiring, but she kept her focus. At night, after work, she began studying. She took online courses in business management, reading books on finance, and watching free lectures. She didn't have much money, but she spent what she could on anything that would help her build a future. She met a woman named Rachel, an older business owner, who took her under her wing. Rachel saw Maria's potential and taught her the ropes of running a company. The lessons were tough, but Maria learned quickly. She knew this was the path she needed to take. She wouldn't be denied again. It started small. Maria's first venture was a small online store, selling handmade candles and soaps. She didn't have much money to invest, so she worked from home, using her kitchen to prepare the products. At first, it was slow, very slow. She barely sold a few items each week. But Maria wasn't discouraged. She kept learning, tweaking her marketing strategies, and figuring out how to make better products. She reinvested every penny she earned back into the business. She upgraded her website, bought better ingredients, and even paid for ads, though those were few and far between. Over time, word spread. People started to notice the quality of her products, and orders began to come in more regularly. She expanded to other handmade goods, including small furniture and custom home decor. Every new product was a step forward. Maria didn't sleep much. She worked every day, often late into the night, balancing her business with taking care of Daniel. But with each passing month, her business grew. Slowly but surely, she was building something real. Eventually, she hired her first employee, someone who had worked with her at the cafe. She trusted them and knew they believed in her vision. The store turned a profit. Maria had finally made her dream a reality, but she wasn't done yet. There was more to achieve. Meanwhile, across the city, Leonard Hayes was facing the consequences of his own arrogance. Hayes Enterprises, the company he had once been so proud of, was struggling. It started with a few bad decisions, investments in failing markets, cutting corners to save money, and ignoring the rising competition. Leonard was too confident in his own abilities, too proud to listen to his team or to consider the changing landscape. His staff began to leave, fed up with his unwillingness to change. Investors pulled out, seeing no future in the company. Leonard didn't care. He believed things would turn around on their own. He was wrong. The company's stock value began to drop, and his competitors started taking over key accounts. Leonard ignored the signs, too focused on his lavish lifestyle and stubborn pride to face the reality. He spent more time at expensive dinners and parties than in the boardroom. And when he did show up for meetings, he barely listened to his advisors. Soon, Hayes Enterprises was hemorrhaging money. His employees became more frustrated, and the company's reputation began to crumble. Despite all his wealth and connections, Leonard couldn't stop the collapse. The company was losing its footing, and with it, his once unshakable confidence. It was only a matter of time before he would be forced to make a decision. Would he admit failure, or would he continue to cling to the belief that he could fix everything himself? Maria's business was now thriving. What started as a small online store had grown into a brand that people recognized. She expanded her product line, reaching into fashion and accessories, and even opened a small shop in a popular part of town. She had learned so much over the years: how to negotiate, how to manage employees, how to scale her operations. Every challenge that came her way was met with determination. She had learned to be smart with her money, reinvesting her profits and cutting costs wherever she could. Her reputation as a reliable businesswoman spread, and investors began showing interest. Maria took her time, carefully selecting the right partners, making sure they believed in her vision as much as she did. In just a few short years, her business became one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. Maria knew she wasn't just building a business, she was building a future for herself and Daniel. Her son, now old enough to understand, looked up to her with admiration. He had watched her work tirelessly to get to this point, and he was proud of his mother. Maria's success wasn't just about financial gain, it was about proving to herself and to the world that she could overcome any obstacle. One day, she received a call from a potential buyer, someone interested in acquiring her business. She had come so far, but she was only just getting started. The call Maria received wasn't just any inquiry, it was an opportunity. The buyer on the other end of the line was interested in acquiring her company. It wasn't surprising. After all, her business had become a formidable force in the industry. But Maria didn't rush into the decision. She knew her worth, and she knew the value of everything she had worked for. She took her time, consulted with her advisors, and evaluated her options. But as she reviewed the situation, one thought stood out. If she could negotiate this deal properly, she could not only expand but also take control of something bigger. That's when it hit her. She could acquire Leonard Hayes's company, the one that had once rejected her. The opportunity was right in front of her. Leonard's company, Hayes Enterprises, was struggling, and they were looking for a buyer. Maria was determined. She made her move, offering a deal that was far better than Leonard could have hoped for in his desperate situation. Her offer was solid, with the right terms and an ironclad plan for the future. To Leonard's surprise, the deal was quickly accepted. His company, once a shining symbol of his arrogance, was now in the hands of the very woman he had dismissed years ago. Leonard had no idea what was coming. The deal was done, and Hayes Enterprises was officially Maria's. She now owned the company that had once rejected her. Leonard Hayes sat at his desk, staring at the documents in front of him. He couldn't believe it. His company, his empire, was gone. Hayes Enterprises had been sold. The reality of his failure was sinking in, and the humiliation was unbearable. He had tried everything to save it, but nothing worked. He had no choice but to accept the deal. And now, he had to face the new owner. When the door to his office opened, Leonard looked up. His heart skipped a beat when he saw who walked in. It was Maria. She stood in the doorway, dressed in a sharp, confident suit, her posture strong. She didn't look like the woman he had rejected years ago. She looked like a leader, someone who had earned every bit of her success. Leonard's mind raced. He didn't know what to say. He had no idea what to do. Maria smiled, though there was no warmth in it. She walked toward him slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle between them. "You look surprised," she said softly, her voice calm but firm. Leonard stammered, trying to find his words. I didn't expect." "You didn't expect this?" she interrupted. "You didn't expect the woman you rejected to come back and take what's mine?" Leonard's face turned pale. He couldn't hide the shame. He had underestimated her, and now she was in control. I need a job," he muttered, defeated. Maria simply looked at him. "You had your chance," she said. "Now this is mine."